Welcome. Today we're going to be changing the front brake pads on this 2008 Toyota Prius. So I noticed some grinding noises that happen as you get close to the edge of your brake pad life. So today what we're going to be doing is replacing those. So what I did was I ordered some third-party brake pads from Amazon. These are a pretty decent quality aftermarket brand. They were $45 or so. In addition to that, we're going to need a jack, preferably a jack stand. This is actually one of the Harbor Freight recalled ones, so I would recommend not those. And then some sockets. I think it's 21 and 14 millimeters, but I'll double check on that. And then a screwdriver might be useful for prying your calipers. The first step is I rotated the wheel to the right a little bit just to give us a little bit better access to that caliper. Pro tip: if you're going to put your wrench in prior to changing the wheel, don't scratch the side of your car. So luckily this is already full of scratches and it's not that big of a deal. But before we lift it off the ground, we're going to loosen all of these. If you're a noob, just so you know, it's hard to loosen these once it's up in the air because then your wheel's going to start to rotate. So first step is to do that. Just got to loosen them like that. Then we'll actually take them off once it's up in the air. So I actually run Michelin X Ice tires year round because I'm a nut. Regulars to my channel know that I'm usually riding a motorcycle in the warmer weather, so I just keep winter tires year round. Anyway, for a jack point, if you're not used to this kind of thing, what we're looking for is a hard part down here, not something plasticky, not something that's going to get damaged. And one of the jacking points that I like under here is kind of this bolt thingy down here. So I'm going to stick my jack down there and then send her up. And we have liftoff. So just so our world doesn't come crashing down while we have the wheel off, you want to support with jack stands, preferably in more than one place if you have a couple. So I'm going to go grab a second one. That way when we take the wheel off, the jack fails, it's not going to come falling down. Now, if you don't have a drill adapter, I would highly recommend it, not just for this, but for life in general. Anyway, we'll make quick work of these. Zip them off. If you have any of those stupid locking ones, get rid of them. You don't want to get stuck on the side of the road with AAA not being able to rip your things off because you lost the key, and they're expensive to replace. So take those off if you have them. That's my recommendation. So this might require a little bit of loosening. There we go. So this is the rotor. If you don't feel any vibrations or pulsations when you're braking, it's probably still true. So even though mine is rusted on top, I'm not actually replacing it because this one seems to be in fine condition for me. This is the caliper and your brake pads are inside. So this is one of the pads here and then there's one in the back. And so those are held on by these bolts in the back here. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. So I'm gonna go loosen those. All right. So what happens is your brake pads wear down and they get thinner. And so you're going to need to make some space in the calipers, and you either do that by compressing these after it's off or by just sort of jamming in something and provide leverage to help you open that because it's under some pressure. So generally the inside is going to be thinner than the outside. So when you're looking at this when the wheel's on and you're like, how much brake life do I have left? Well, you know, I didn't have very much life here, But check out the inside, and that is gonna explain why I had some grinding sounds, so this should fix our problem here. So we just wanna get these off right here. We'll hold on to these clips because we're gonna reuse them. Yum. Oh man, get ready for this, guys. Nice. Okie dokie. Now these pads came, like you see here, came with a little bit of moly brake lube, which is handy. I had some ceramic brake lube already, but I'm just going to use this. And they provide you with this, which I'm not going to read. So let's just open her up. So all I have to say about this is I'm not proud of it. So the pads are directional. This is the inner one, which you can tell because you can match up the little circle here with the caliper, piston, whatever it is. So the one that looks like a pig with two heads is inside and the other one is outside. So the inside one also has this little clip on the edge. So that's how we're going to line up here. And then the outer ones don't have any other sort of special appendages. I was planning on reusing these clips. I thought that was how it's supposed to work, but these don't fit. They're too big. You know, they're not the OEM replacements. They're just a high quality aftermarket or whatever. So I'm just going to leave the clips out and hope we're okay. So we'll just plop those back in, and they sort of fit only one way, right, with these little knobs. So it just goes just like that on both sides here. I can do this one-handed. Alright, so I'm going to try to turn the camera off here and just squeeze this in a little bit before I lay it over the edge here. Put the bolts back on. Oh, should have mentioned, as with motorcycles, you shouldn't really leave this caliper hanging off the brake hose. It just puts pressure on it, so it's nice if you can alleviate that pressure. And then the other thing that I failed to note as I was hastily putting these in is we need to lubricate them. So I'm going to add a little bit of that lube where it interfaces with these clips here, and then there's going to be a little bit on the outside edge, making sure not to have any contact with the actual brake pad surface. Just compressing the piston. So the caliper piston really has to be compressed all the way in order to fit over these giant honkers. And I put a tiny bit of assembly lube on there, and then these, I guess, got to be squeezed in as well. I don't know if you guys can hear that crazy bird in the background. There's lots of crazy birds. Springtime. Can't wait for the enhanced braking power. Nice and tight. So with that, my friends, we can retrieve our wheel. Lining these up and lifting it up at the same time is always fun, so my patented trick, which don't blame me if you hurt yourself doing this, is to use my feet to lift it up, and then I can eyeball the alignment until we're like that. And then we can put our lug nuts back on. So let's quickly get it on, and then I'll really torque it down once it's down on the ground. And then best practice is you drive it around for a couple miles first and then retighten all your lug nuts to make sure that they're all kind of, you know, set up properly and that you didn't tighten them down crooked or something. So when you first start the car up for the first time after this, pump the brakes a few times to get those pistons retightened. You know, we crank that out to make room for these new pads, and we want to make sure before we're actually in traffic or something to make sure everything's operational. It's always a good idea to remove your jack stands. So as you can see, replacing your brakes is an easy job. And if you have just the basic tools and can follow instructions, you can do this. But this is an important safety feature in your car. If you're not comfortable with it, definitely go someplace. I assume no responsibility for this. Now we'll be turning the car on, changing the wheels, cocking it to the left, and then tackling the left side. Also, whenever you're tightening lug nuts, you kind of go in a star shape. You don't go around like a clock. You kind of alternate like doop, 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 doop kind of thing. So the second side is now all done, and it actually only took about 10 minutes once I had all the tools here and I stopped talking to myself. So make sure you test it in a low stakes area, get it all set up, make sure you're all safe and good to go. Also, I get a lot of shit for driving a Prius, but honestly it's a really great car. I am getting rid of this. I'm replacing it with a second Outback. And honestly, anytime somebody gives me shit, I just tell them about my motorcycles and they shut the fuck up. Also, do you have any idea how much gas I've saved by driving this thing? It has 201,000 miles and still averages over 40 miles per gallon. So to the haters, deal with it. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helped. Have a good one, guys.